It is tortured ground. And on Thursday night, it's going to be a place of murder. A murder that doesn't have to happen, but one that has happened now over and over and over again under a supposed pro-life governor that could stop any of these murders with a phone call.
There is no redemption with the death penalty. There is no hope with the death penalty. We pray that Governor Bill Lee will live up to what he writes on Twitter.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
Christians, we are the problem. The death penalty would not stand a chance in America if it weren't for the support of Christians. 95% of executions are happening in the Bible Belt. So we are raising up our voices, right? To stand up for mercy, to stand up for life.
We won't be silent anymore. Everybody say somebody's hurting our children and it's gonna far too long.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Abe Bonowitz here with a variety of other panelists. Some other folks will be joining us as well. And it's the forecast, the first Sunday of the month of October. As you know, we do this so at least once a month. We did one just a couple weeks ago because of the proximity to Labor Day and all that, but and also the early nature of this. But we're here to talk about the upcoming executions, and we're going to talk about a few other things that are coming up, including tomorrow's Wrongful Conviction Day and next week's World Day Against the Death Penalty. So those are the things that are coming up. But let's take a moment and have our panelists introduce themselves. Allie, you want to start?
Hi, I'm Allie. I'm the communications person here at Death Penalty Action.
And while Jeff is getting ready, then we can let people know you can introduce yourselves in the chat where you're watching from, put any questions there, that sort of thing. Reverend Dr. Jeff Hood is muted.
I'm Jeff Hood. I'm in Little Rock, Arkansas. I am a spiritual advisor to various people, various condemned persons on death rows throughout the country.
Charles?
My name is Charles Keith. I'm the Impacted Communities Liaison for Death Penalty Action.
And Grace.
Hi, everyone. I'm Grace, and I'm located in Florida. I'm a volunteer with Death Penalty Action and Floridians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty.
Thank you. We're going to start with you, Grace. Tonight, we're looking down the barrel at an execution on Tuesday evening, just 2 nights, less than 48 hours from now. We've got a little video from Maria de Liberato, but first, Grace, do you want to set us up? What's happening? What are the things you want to make sure people know?
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. So in 2 days, Florida is planning to execute Michael Zach, who is a man who spent more than half of his life on Florida's death row since 1996 for the murder, a really horrific murder of Ravon Smith. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. Unfortunately, Michael Zach's story is horrifying and not unique for people who find themselves on death row. He'll be the 6th person this year in Florida with strong legal claims that his death sentence and execution are unconstitutional. Michael, or sometimes they call him Zach or Bubba, was born prematurely to a mother who drank alcohol pretty regularly while she was pregnant with him. He had a condition called microcephaly, which is a brain developmental disorder. He also had fetal alcohol syndrome, which is the most severe form of the fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. Zach and his 3 sisters experienced what could really best be described as sadistic abuse at the hands of their father throughout their childhood. And his mother was murdered when he was 11, and that abuse worsened significantly. His 3 sisters testified at the 1996 trial on behalf of Zach. and are in regular contact with him to this day. They all, including Michael Zach, recognize the horrific pain that Miss Smith's family has endured, and they're also really devastated at the thought of losing their brother, who they have loved and tried to protect for their whole lives. Since being in prison, Michael Zach has learned to read and write, and he has been sober for the first time in his life. His only issues in prison have been for having too many stamps and for wearing the wrong colored shirt to a prison event. He's truly remorseful. He's also intellectually disabled, loved, a human being. Florida has now, if this goes forward, this will be Florida's 6th execution in 222 days. And they say the death penalty is for the worst of the worst. Michael Zach is not among those. Still, the state of Florida is fighting tooth and nail to ensure that Michael Zach is executed and that the courts continue to turn a blind eye to injustices happening in Florida, not just related to the death penalty. So we just ask that in the days ahead, you keep Michael Zach in your thoughts, his legal team, his spiritual advisor, Department of Corrections officials, his victims' families, and his family as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Grace. Let's go ahead and share the 5-minute video from Maria, getting into a little bit more of the details. And then we'll see what questions there are from the audience about Michael Zach's execution. We'll also talk about some of the action things that we'll be doing in the next couple of days. Allie, you ready? Welcome, everybody. My name is Abe Bonowitz with Death Penalty Action. Ali Sullivan is here. Others will be joining us as we look at the forecast for the upcoming executions in the coming, month and a half. As you know, normally we do this on the first Sunday of the month, but because it was Labor Day, and also we've got executions right in the 1st and the 3rd or something like that in October, we're doing it today, and we might even do another one just before. But the whole idea here is to look at what are the upcoming executions, what are the issues within them, what are our allies in the states where these are happening saying, and what can we do about it? So we're joined first by Maria De Liberato, who is the Executive Director of Floridians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty. Maria, thank you for making time on a Sunday night again. Sadly, this is too regular for you and us. But here we are. So we've got Zach coming up, and what can you tell us?
Thanks. Thanks for having me, Abe, and thanks for having me on. So Michael Zach is set October 3rd. There's a lot of challenges pending in both state and federal court. He has a tremendous team of lawyers who are doing a great job for him. There's a challenge to the clemency process. There's a challenge. He has fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. So there's an intellectual disability extension claim. He has some of the, I know I say this a lot, but some of the most traumatic childhood experiences that I think I've seen in 20 years of this work. And so, there's all of that is being litigated. He also has support of family and friends. And we at FADP are actually able to help them arrange for visitation and things like that. So we're able to bring his family and friends to see him, which we're very grateful to be able to do. So we can help alleviate some of that stress while his legal team is working, around the clock to try to get this execution stayed. We have the petition, which I think someone just put it in the chat. FADP has one as well. It's our sort of similar standard petition to ask the governor to reopen clemency and grant Mr. Zach clemency, life without the possibility of parole. So that is what we're asking y'all to do. We'll have vigils in place, of course, if the execution does proceed. I'll be at FSP myself on the execution eve, and there's plenty of other vigils that are going to be around the state that are happening. And in terms of where they are, I know the state just responded in federal district court yesterday. There's a motion for stay and a lawsuit challenging the clemency process. And then the briefing schedule in the Florida Supreme Court is ongoing. So, we always remain hopeful, yet a lot of these challenges have been legally rejected before. So But he does, like I said, have a lot of very, very, very strong mitigation claims and a lot of things that weren't presented and or adequately presented and or the general consensus has changed. So we always remain hopeful, and yet we're prepared to continue to tell his story and make the last, what may be the last month of his life, as comfortable as possible and ensure that he gets to spend it with his friends and family. So that's the Zach update.
Thank you. I want to just share for a moment here. This is the webpage of Floridians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty, fadp.org. Somebody can put that in the chat, please. And of course, right here at the top is, well, there's lots of good stuff here as always, but right here at the top is where you click to see stay the execution. And this is where there's the petition from FADP. The Catholic Mobilizing Network typically has a petition. Death Penalty Action typically has a petition. And what we've been doing is joining together and submitting all of the petition signatures from all of us together when that happens. So you've got the petition here. Every case is a little bit different. Maria, is there any additional resources? Of course, there's the Substack that Melanie Collinson is always, it's one of the most helpful things existing in terms of, every state needs something like that. But is there more resources, more information?
Yeah, Melanie does a great job of sort of posting all the legal pleadings as they go. We typically do an email a week in terms of the updates, but she's really great at saying where the cases are in the court and what's happening. So I would definitely, say that's the best resource. Of course, we have our internal listservs and everything is shared upon. So I've been following the legal saga, of course, but her blog is, I would say, the best in terms of up to date of the legal action. And then at FADP, we'll keep everybody posted on sort of what's happening from the execution side.
Well, there you have it. Grace, you have, you'll be out at the prison again with us. Anything more that you want to mention about the presence at the prison, about what's happening with others around the country, around the state, I should say?
Yeah, so let me grab that link actually. So on Tuesday night, assuming this execution proceeds, there'll be a group of folks gathered outside the prison. So if you're in Florida and are able to come, your presence is always appreciated. And there are also other vigils and vigils throughout the state. And I will drop that link in the chat. I'll also drop a link to the FADP petition and Melanie's Substack, but
that'd be great. I went ahead and put a link to the Substack. Currently there's 2 petitions at the U.S. Supreme Court. Obviously, for those who didn't catch it, we were just running a recording from a couple of weeks ago. But this is the Substack, and this is where you can sign up for it and see all the updates on this particular case. I also want to share, where did I put that? Too many windows open, don't I? Here it is. This is the Death Penalty Action Facebook page. Many of you probably got this in email today. You can see finally got it together, and Grace actually put this together. I think it was Grace. Was it Grace or Ali who put this together? The virtual sit-in graphics. Grace, thank you very much for this. And you can see starting tomorrow morning, so we have Monday and Tuesday all day to be disrupting business as usual at the governor's office, making sure that they're answering the phone calls. Keep signing the petition and sending that out, because we'll put them all together with the FADP and the Catholic Mobilizing Network petitions for delivery. That'll happen on Tuesday. And of course, we always encourage people to support the local abolitionist organizations. So that would be Floridians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty in this case. And then, of course, you got to register for the virtual vigil if you're not going to be there in person. And Grace is the person behind the camera, doing a great job bringing us live to to the vigil that they do in Florida. And as you know, if you've been on those, then you know we have actually just turned the programming over to the folks on the ground in Florida once they get going. So are there any questions regarding Michael Zach and what's happening in his case? God willing, there will be some sort of relief from the U.S. Supreme Court, or maybe the governor will have a change of heart after all of us call all day repeatedly. All right. Let's see. Thank you very much. Next, we have the, in between, actually, no, before, it's tomorrow. I'll mention again, Wrongful Convictions Day. There's not a whole lot that we want to say about that tonight, except that Death Penalty Action is doing a series of short videos, live conversations with different death row survivors, exonerees, and we'll see how many of those come together. But that we just did one an hour ago with Glenn Simmons, the most recent exoneree from Oklahoma. He becomes the 11th death row survivor from Oklahoma and the 195th. His charges were just thrown out on September 19th. And so you can watch that brief conversation on all the social media channels for Death Penalty Action. And there it is. So next up is the execution of Jedediah Murphy on World Day Against the Death Penalty. There's been a lot going on all over the country, all over the world about World Day Against the Death Penalty. I invited Gabi Ewell to come on. Gabi, you want to turn on your camera? Are you able to join us? Well, maybe she'll be able to turn on her camera and join us to talk a little bit about World Day Against the Death Penalty. But let's talk about Jedediah Murphy. And Ali, if you could tee up that video that Mike Zusman made, that we made with Mike also from the last one. Cantor Zusman was unable to attend tonight too so far. He may show up, and it's just another, they say a lot of people know about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the big Jewish holidays, but there's more, and they go on for weeks. And tonight it's Sukkot, and he may be busy with that. But Jedediah Murphy is scheduled to be executed on October 10th. There's a lot of issues in his case. I'm going to share my screen again, and we'll get over to that so we can see, always you can find these things, all the information, as you know, at deathpenaltyaction.org. If you get over here to Jedediah Murphy's petition, and you can see a lot of the issues that are happening that are spelled out here, but I want to point out that there's resources here, especially for everybody, but in particular around the approaching Jewish people, because this guy is Jewish. So that is an issue. There's also a web page here for Jedediah Murphy that you can find and get into his own writing, his own story. It's one of the things we want to try to do is make sure that prisoners, when they're able, are able to tell their own stories. And this is his webpage. We put this together for Jedediah Murphy. And you can see there's lots of different ways to find information about it. In particular, there's one, one of the things that we've started doing on these web pages is including the news items, and you can start to see some of what's happening with the news. We haven't even had to do a press release because people are paying attention. Some people are paying attention, but this is the newest thing. Is this headline here from the Jewish Chronicle in England is published this article just the other day about how a police officer has provided false testimony to the jury, and we're going to see if this is yet again procedurally barred, because that's what keeps happening. Is issues, information comes up at the last minute. Jedediah, committed this particular crime, but one of the reasons why he's on death row and facing execution is because they lied about him at his trial about the issue of future dangerousness. He's got so many issues regarding mental health issues, his own mental health, what happened and what in his history. And you can read about all that. Cantor Zusman is going to tell us a little bit about that in in his video here. So we're going to roll that, and then we'll be back. And by the way, these videos that we're sharing are available to you on our social media to share on yours. So go ahead and hit play on that. I thank you.
Peace unto you. Shalom Aleichem, peace unto you. And at this time before the Jewish New Year, L'Shana Tova, a good year ahead for the year 5784. I'm Cantor Mike Zusman, the co-founder of L'Chaim Jews Against the Death Penalty and an advisory committee member on death penalty action. Standing with you this evening as we ask for life for all those in line for state-sponsored murder. I want to speak a few minutes about our longtime pen pal, Jedediah Murphy. Jedediah Isaac Murphy is Jewish. He's been in touch with me for the past few years, and he has never made excuses for his actions. In the year 2000, Jedediah took the life of Beatrice Lee Harmon Cunningham, Zichrona Livracha, of blessed memory, a 79-year-old woman. Jedediah has never made excuses for this action. He has been profoundly repentant since the first day I've corresponded with him. This despite the fact that Jedediah himself lives with dissociative identity disorder and fell through the cracks of social means that were meant to lift him up. At a time when many people in the Jewish world celebrate becoming a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah for boys at the age of 13, Jedediah was falling through the cracks of a broken foster care system. Again, he never made excuses for his actions. He's profoundly repentant. And at this season of repentance, of teshuvah, which is the Hebrew word for repentance, I want to offer some words that Jedediah shared with me on what repentance means. He sent this to me on August 31st. Shalom, Cantor. This is what I learned about repentance. When we are young and we do something wrong, we apologize or say we're sorry, and that is that. All is forgiven, because as children, that is about the limit we could understand. However, as adults, that all changes. You cannot say you're sorry repeatedly, even if you mean it, and expect others to keep forgiving you. It takes more. Asking for forgiveness is the first step in a process that involves making changes. I have been in this situation for 23 years, and since the beginning, I have had to shoulder the weight of the pain all of this caused. It cannot be avoided or wished away because my life is 7 by 9 feet of concrete box. I never did a documentary or interview at all until now because I never wanted to cause more harm to those I hurt. I do it now as a way to try and keep people from this path of pain and sorrow I've been walking for decades. I take responsibility, and I always have, because in all the wrong things I've done, I needed more than anything to do the right thing here. That admission helped to change my life, and I believe Hashem, a Hebrew name for God, required that of me to heal my broken life. I understand why people avoid it, but they do it at their own peril, because healing comes from understanding what went wrong and how much it affected other people. He closes by saying, I share my regrets and my beliefs because it's been proven again and again to be the right way. I really would sacrifice my life to undo this hurt, and those that know me know I speak the truth. May Hashem, the divine, bless all of you and keep you and make the divine face shine upon you. Hashem has certainly done that to me. Shalom, Jedediah. On the Jewish high holidays, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that are coming up, cantors, rabbis, leaders of congregations will be chanting a consummate piyut, a liturgical poem called Unatan Tokef. A high point of that is the paragraph, Berosh Hashanah Yikatevun, Uvyom Tzom Kippur Yechatemun. On Rosh Hashanah it is written, and on Yom Kippur it is sealed. Who shall live, and who shall die? May this be left in Hashem's hands, not the faulty and fallible hands of humanity. Berosh Hashanah Yikatevun, Uvyom Tzom Kippur Yechatemun. Berosh Hashanah Yikatevun, Uvyom Tzom Kippur Yechatemun. On Rosh Hashanah it is written, and on Yom Kippur it is sealed. L'chaim, for life. Amen.
Thank you, Cantor Zusman. Gabi, are you here yet? Again, there's so much happening. And this is Gabi Ewell from the German Coalition to Abolish the Death Penalty, but also part of the World Coalition to Abolish the Death Penalty or against the death penalty. And I just wanted to give you a moment to talk a little bit about the context of this execution, a Jewish guy being executed on World Day Against the Death Penalty, and also, anything you want to share about, that context.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me tonight. I was a little bit surprised. Actually, it's 3 a.m. Over here in Germany. Yes, the World Day Against the Death Penalty is approaching soon on October 10th. And of course, the German Coalition to Abolish the Death Penalty is aware of the fact that at exactly this day, Jedediah Murphy is scheduled to be executed, and that's pretty heavy situation, I think. The German coalition is active these days as well. Several of our members participate in different events, and what we just doing this time in Germany is that we publish each day from October 1st to October 15th a contribution of our members reading texts, poems, or reports from people on death row. It's in our YouTube channel, but it's in German language, so that's not so much interesting for the world-wide community, of course. I myself will be in Frankfurt on October 10th. I'm invited to a vigil in public in Frankfurt. There's I will have the possibility to speak there together with other people from Amnesty International and other organizations, and I'm going to not only to speak about the subject in general, but I want to think of and remind the people of Jedediah Murphy as well on that day. Yeah.
Thank you very much for bringing us that place and for being up so late. We're grateful to all of you who live in Europe and still stay up to join us and to be with us in these vigils and things. And we're together and we're with you and we're grateful for you. I want to flag in the chat here on the Zoom, Patricia Murphy put in some resources about future dangerousness, which is the issue in so many cases, and in Jedediah Murphy's case too. Hopefully, prayerfully, we hope that execution, that somehow this litigation that's still being introduced in his case will prevail and at least slow down, if not halt this execution entirely. Jedediah Murphy is among the people. I'm in regular touch with him. We exchange emails usually almost every day. It just depends. It's amazing sometimes how it can take a couple of days for a message to get through, and then sometimes it's just minutes. But he's been, just really focused on getting himself in order and also in responding to many of the questions that he's getting. There was a big article in the Forward yesterday, which is the preeminent and largest publication in the Jewish community in the country, in the United States. And also, of course, we're getting a lot of coverage from the Jewish Chronicle in England, which is the oldest Jewish publication that's still going, as far as I know. And they're really focusing on the issues. Alan Dershowitz, the attorney, who's been a long advocate for abolition of the death penalty, has gotten involved in the case and is helping behind the scenes and is also being a spokesperson in the case. So we want to continue to lift that up and make sure people are understanding the issues in this case. And of course, it is unique that this is what we would call a halachically Jewish person. You'll see that reference because there's many people who go to death row who then convert to Judaism or say they're converting to Judaism. And that's especially for Jews, a little bit different than when it's an actual person who grew up Jewish or is the actual, according to the Torah, born of a Jewish mother. You're a Jew whether you like it or not. And that's Jedediah's situation. So since arriving on death row, and one of the things he actually said to this reporter from the Forward was, nobody chooses to be Jewish in prison. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to be in prison at all, but that's one of the things that you might get targeted for is your religion if you're not the flavor of Christian that they want you to be. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on with regards to the Will Spear case that's coming up. But Jedediah is also in this. One of the things that's happened and that's very unique in this case, and we're going to hear more about this, is the prison ministry folks, and in particular the rabbis that are working with Jedediah, but also there's this whole network of prison ministry that goes on, and they're advocating for him to have his sentence commuted. We'll see what those letters end up being when we see what gets released to the public from the clemency petition, and which has already been filed. And there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope. Gail, I see you got your hand up. Is there a question? Can you put that in the chat?
He did put the question in the chat. Her question is, do Michael and Jedediah have state-appointed attorneys? If so, are the lawyers helping to fight? Are the lawyers fighting to help their clients?
I think, Grace, do you want to talk about the legal team? Maria did a little bit in her video for Michael Zach. You still hear Grace?
Oh, yes. Hi.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I can speak a little bit about Zach. So in Florida, we have it's a unit of folks who specifically handle death penalty appeals and warrant periods. So Michael Zach has a pretty dedicated team of attorneys who are litigating, I would say zealously, I guess is the word that they use now, on his behalf. So currently the cases are just pending at the US Supreme Court. He still has 2 petitions pending there that we're waiting for a decision on sometime this week.
And what I can tell you is that as little as 2 months ago, or about 2 months ago, is when Jedediah received the attorney that's doing his clemency work right now. He's had an attorney at the trial court level who doesn't do any of the state level things. But over the summer, he was trying to find somebody. He still did not have representation. Now he does. It's good, solid representation. It's people that do death penalty defense work in Texas, and I have a lot of confidence in what they've put forth. We've not had direct contact ourselves, but Mike Zusman is in contact with them as well as, and we're in direct contact with Mike and with Jedediah and his wife Vivian and others. So that stuff is happening. It's solid, and with hopefully it's successful. I will note that there's a lot of hope about clemency in that case, but I want to share that there's been 577 executions since December 7th, 1982 in Texas. 577 executions. A total of 5 recommendations for clemency from the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles. So 2 of those were rejected, 3 were granted. So that means 500. And 8 times they almost executed somebody and got to that point of clemency. And in only 3 of those cases was a clemency recommendation given by the Board of Pardons and Paroles and accepted by the governor. And that's the thing in Texas and other places, but in Texas for sure, the governor cannot do anything except delay an execution for a short period of time without a recommendation. They cannot grant clemency and change a person's sentence without a recommendation of the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles, which I think is it's a political appointee process, and there's a lot more we could say about that. Other questions? Okay, so let's see. Also coming up this week, and then I want to invite Jeff and Alan to tell us a little about what they'll be on World Day Against the Death with us. But on Wednesday, there's a sponsor testimony. This is good news. Sponsor testimony for the death penalty abolition bill in Ohio. On Thursday in Oklahoma, there's a hearing at the legislature about should there be a moratorium on executions. It's an ongoing conversation, but they're going to kind of strike it back up. Representative Kevin McDougal, a pro-death penalty Republican, who's deeply concerned about the wrongful executions in some cases. We didn't hear from him at all regarding Anthony Sanchez, but he's leading this effort around Richard Glossip, and they're going to talk about should there be a moratorium on all the executions in Oklahoma. So that's good news, and that's happening in Oklahoma. And again, there's lots of different groups that tomorrow in particular are going to be doing activities around International Wrongful Convictions Day, and then on World Day Against the Death Penalty, there's lots of folks doing stuff also. But on Thursday also, I'm not sure what the program is. Kim Kardashian's program on Hulu is going to feature Kevin Keith and Charles Keith and their family. Charles, you want to come on here and share a little bit about that experience and what's happening there?
Well, it's really exciting that, again, I say with all the attorneys out there and a lot of their motions, I've been reading motions half my life, and I would have to take my hats off to a lot of attorneys, because it's sad that that type of work, and that much time consumed just to hear a lot of that stuff turned down. Attorneys don't put things together like that frivolously. I mean, they're putting their heart and souls in this stuff, and just to hear it turned down. If you were to hear, and some of these motions would be granted, a lot of these people would be out. We've got to get past that denial stage at the courts. And that's where the celebrities are coming in. They're coming in, bringing that attention and that notoriety to the cases. So hopefully with the celebrity status, that could help bolster whatever it is that the attorneys are trying to do.
And Charles, has your brother is Kevin Keith, who was one day 13 days away from execution and has been doing a death by incarceration sentence ever since. So we often talk about that case, but that's just a new thing that's happening this week in the Kevin Keith case. So thank you for that. And then on World Day Against the Death Penalty, I think did we decide noon Eastern time? You'll be seeing advertisements about that. Jeff Hood and Ali Sullivan will be doing a panel discussion about their new book that they're publishing. You want to talk about that, Ali and Jeff?
Ali.
Oh, you want me to go first?
Yes, absolutely.
So several months ago, Jeff came to me with the idea of doing a little book, nothing crazy. It's not very long. And it's from the perspective of an abolitionist, and it kind of covers a number of different topics and ideas and experiences that are all too familiar with being a death penalty abolitionist. And sometimes we know it can be pretty isolating to do this work, and it's not work that a lot of people are familiar with the feelings around. And so our hope was that the book just kind of showed some of that, and I guess just made it so that you didn't feel as lonely, because like I said, this work can feel very lonely. So we talked about grief and about being alone and about rage. Most of the book was written in the immediate wake of Arthur Brown Jr.'s execution in Texas on March 9th. And then we finished it up with Anthony Sanchez's execution.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. I think that, for me, it was important to, it's always important to document these experiences. There's no doubt about that. But I think that even more than that, it's important for us to connect with each other as we document these experiences, as we move through our lived realities and become extensions of the stories in and of ourselves. And so with this project, Ali and I were both we're very connected to the campaign and execution of Arthur Brown. And we were also very connected to the campaign and, unfortunately, the ultimate execution of Anthony Sanchez. And so we both wanted this opportunity to say, this is what it's been like. This is what it looks like to feel rage. This is what it looks like to feel grief. And if nothing else, hopefully that connects with people. But if nothing else, it gives voice to what we've experienced. And perhaps by giving voice to what we experience, it will inspire others to give voice to what they've experienced. Because I do think that the work of the abolitionists can oftentimes be a very lonely place. But it's me and Ali's contention that it doesn't have to be. That we can show each other that we're experiencing similar things and learn how to walk with each other as we seek to save lives.
So you'll be seeing more opportunities to register for that Zoom once we get that set up. That'll be at noon Eastern time on October 10th, World Day Against the Death Penalty. Be one of many, many things that are available to you online and in person, depending on where you're at. So, plan now to be, helping lift up. I mean, from death penalty action's perspective, every day is the day to be working against the death penalty. And that's what we do every single day. But obviously it makes sense to focus on and have a day where the whole world can be watching for it. So again, tomorrow, October 2nd, World International Wrongful Convictions Day. And then on October 10th, World day against the death penalty. So let's talk about Will Spear. But first, I do want to note Robert Oswald in the chat was actually involved with the family of Charlie Brooks. Charlie Brooks, who I mentioned, the first Texas execution under current law was December 7th, 1982. Was actually the first use of the Nazi invention of lethal injection in for an execution in the United States. Lethal injections may have been used in the past prior to that, but that was a Nazi thing, and that's what we do here. In any case, if you're not watching in the Zoom in the chat, Robert Oswald wrote that I'll never forget December 7th, 1982, a day which will live in infamy. Yes, for a number of reasons. At Huntsville, Charlie Brooks Jr. became the first person in history to die by lethal injection in the United States under current death penalty. And 3 days later, Bob made remarks at the funeral at the Fort Worth Masjid of Al-Islam. So thanks for sharing that, Bob. And we probably ought to have a conversation about that, maybe coming up on December 7th, because that'll be the anniversary date of that. And we could put something together around that. I'll just share about that execution too, just as an aside. Our friend Sam Reese Shepard, whose mother was murdered, and his father, Dr. Sam Shepard, was wrongly convicted in that murder in Ohio in 1954. Sam had just been laying low, and he woke up on December 8th and saw a picture in the newspaper of the sons of Charlie Brooks standing outside the Walls unit waiting to hear that their father had been executed. And in those children, he saw himself. And that's what reinvigorated Sam to get involved in the movement. He helped create the now defunct organization, Murder Victim Families for Reconciliation, which led to the Journey of Hope from Violence to Healing, which is still active. One of its co-founders is here on the panel somewhere too, Suzanne Bosler from Florida. And in any case, so many connections. But we're starting to wind down. We still have to talk about Will Spear in Texas. And this is another interesting case because many of us have known about Will Spear for some time. And until recently, he's been advocating his innocence. Nothing about that currently in the petition that they're pushing. It's a unique approach that has been tried a little bit before. We're going to hear about that in this video that Ali's going to play. And we'll see what the opportunities are. But again, it's for all of us to weigh in with the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles and make sure that they're hearing from people and encouraging them to recommend clemency in the case of Will Spear. His execution date is October 23rd. Ali?
My name is William Keith Spear. I presently reside on Texas Death Row. I've been living here for almost 22 years. My purpose is to serve them. My purpose is to be a mentor, to be a leader to them, to show them not only through the classes that they're going to be going, the things that I've already experienced, but to help show them through example of leading, hey, this is the way we do it. This is how change happens in our life.
Big Will, by his mannerisms, by his character, is making an impact in the culture back here, in the atmosphere. He has allowed us to revisit our humanity in the matter of grace and peace. That's been one of the major banners of Big Will, is grace.
To learn and to grow, to see that, it's not about me. It's not about me. When I was living my selfish life, living for me, how I wanted to live, what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, that was all me. That was all selfishness. But now seeing how life has grown to be beyond me, it's how I want to take the experiences that I've been given, and I want to use those experiences to give to these other men.
Big Will, much like his stature, is a very big presence in our community. His absence, just the fact that he has a date right now, is affecting the community at large. There's no doubts about that.
We only relied on each other. We only had each other to rely on. Because if anybody else found out, we were the ones that were going to get in trouble ultimately anyway for speaking on it.
And I called out to God and I said, I don't have the answer, but I know you do. I was pouring it out. And it was it took me like a week later to figure out, what I had actually done. And it was rededicating my life back to God. I am so aware of the things that I've done. I'm so aware of the pain and the hurt that I've caused. I could just say I'm sorry.
Because people know Will's past. People, the guys in prison know his past, and now they see what he's become. And as a leader in the faith-based initiative, and to see the way it's changed him, light years away from where he had been. That I think that's the kind of person that could make an enormous difference.
My cousin, by blood, but more my brother. He's been baptized. He is so happy, so genuinely happy. I hear it in his voice to spread the word, to say, look, I sit here today on death row, but I'm still going to teach you the word so you can change your life.
Listening to Penn BC, Penitentiary Broadcasting Corporation.
Sitting in these cells and looking around and seeing what my life, what my decisions have brought. And I reached that point one day, man. I said, man, my choices aren't the right choices anymore. And I want to make the right choice. And I just asked God, man, hey, you take it all. You do this. And I give it all to you. Y'all brothers out there, y'all guys that you're on the fence or whatever it is that you're dealing with. Hey, man, God's there. God's there and he will meet you where you are.
Will has made so much progress, especially in the recent past, that he has capabilities to help other people and make a real difference. He's a really good person, and he wants to do good for other people, and it's just a waste of a human life for him to be executed.
I couldn't have dreamed of him being a better man. I really couldn't have. I couldn't have dreamed of him becoming a better man. In prison? In prison he became this man? God works even in prison.
It's not about death row anymore. It's about being life row because of the changes and the lives that are being made. Regardless of what happens with the sentence, it's about the lives that are changing. I want to have that opportunity to share what I have been given, and so that's what I asked for. That's what I want to share.
Yeah, this is not the first time that somebody's making an appeal based on, this person can be a productive member of the prison community. If we don't kill them, look at what they've created. We saw this with Carla Faye Tucker in Texas. So we've seen this in many other states. There were several opportunities where Governor Lee in Tennessee had a chance to commute the death sentence to somebody that had been like a model prisoner. I'm trying to remember the man's name. There was one guy that, he was so trusted that they let him have the run of the prison with the tools and such, and he was there to help fix things. Guys running around with a screwdriver, giving that to a death row prisoner. So there's been lots of motivations and lots of different ways people have changed themselves, and this is the latest of appeals that are being made both in the cases of Jedediah Murphy and in Will Spear, that, hey, this guy could help other prisoners and be productive and is not a danger to anybody. That's the appeal that's being made to the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles. And then, of course, Governor Abbott, if it gets past the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles. So we're going to see what happens. I'm told there's a couple dozen prisoners on the Texas so-called God Pod, those who choose to enter into this faith-based initiative. I just want to invite others on the panel, notably Jeff Hood, if you have any thoughts on this development and this approach, we welcome that. And, we'll all be watching to see what happens in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I've known Will for over 10 years now, and have a pretty long track record with him. Heard from him, I think, last a month or two ago, or maybe a month ago. But so I want to make sure that it's very clear that I certainly oppose the execution of Will Spear, and certainly believe in any campaign to save his life. So I want to set that aside and speak directly to a lot of faith-based appeals like this. I think we live in the United States where there is a separation of church and state. I believe that nobody should be granted clemency based on their religious affiliation or participation in religious programming. And so I think that we are in very scary territory when we create spaces in which people are brought together and given certain privileges based on their faith. Seems to me that if you're getting better food, if you're getting better accommodations, and Texas asked you to be a Wiccan, there'd be a lot of people who'd want to be a Wiccan. You're getting better food, better accommodations, and they ask you to be all sorts of things. There's a lot of things that people would be. Again, when we venture into these types of religious appeals and we throw everybody else up under the bus who is not as performatively religious as others, we are in very scary territory. Again, I pray that Will Spear will be saved. He has been a friend to me, and I've been a friend to him for a long time. But I will also say that when I see videos like this with this type of melody in the background, whether it's Carla Faye Tucker or whether it's anybody else, the death penalty is wrong. You shouldn't be given any sort of preferential treatment based on your religious practice. And I think as abolitionists, we get into very dangerous territory when we begin to use certain religious practices as a reason to execute or not execute someone. Such a video makes it feel like, well, if you're Mike Zeusman, if you're Jedediah Murphy, and you don't have the evangelical in here in Texas or there in Texas, with the governor, with the parole board, then your life doesn't matter as much. That is very, very dangerous. And I hope that as we continue with our work in the movement, that we will take the time to consider what these campaigns that we put together, how they affect other people who are on death row. Again, Will Spear has long been a friend of mine. I can attest to the fact that he is a nice guy. He's always been somewhat of a spiritual seeker. But I think it's important that we remember that when we go into these hyper-religious campaigns, let us not forget that Will Spear is not the only person on death row, and his is not the only spirituality that matters.
Thanks, Jeff. And it does speak to the issue. Just flip this here. It does speak to the issue of fairness and the question of, are you the right brand of Christian? Are you going to get this? We'll see what happens. Not at all finding fault with the fact that this is a novel angle that is being attempted in this case by the legal team. They applaud whatever they can throw out of it. What it really speaks to is how bankrupt the system is in that, there's no legal argument being made here. It's just a question of this guy is a nice guy and he's a Christian and he's going to help people if we don't kill him, Governor Abbott. So, come on. So we all get to do the things that we normally do, which is make sure that we're disrupting business as usual. And the days coming up to that execution, there's no reason to be waiting. Write your letters to the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles, sign the petitions, share all of that, because that's what we have to do. And we have to keep standing up, even in cases like Michael Zach, like Will Spear, like Jedediah Murphy. Nobody is innocent here. We're talking about people that committed the crimes. We can't trust government with the power to kill. And especially with Jedediah Murphy and Michael Zach, we're talking about people with severe mental illness, intellectual disability in the case of Michael Zach, and horrific childhoods across the board in all of them. So, the links are in the chats, and those are the things that are happening. So unless there's any further comments or questions, I do want to note, I see Galen is in the audience there from South Carolina. I want to note, the South Carolina government has declared that they've got the now lethal injection drugs while they're still waiting for the state Supreme Court to sort out whether it's constitutional to shoot people or burn them to death in the electric chair. They now have secured some drugs, so we may be seeing some execution dates in South Carolina soon. Governor Lee last week actually said, we'll get to it when we're ready, which is different because he's been in the past chomping at the bit to carry out execution. So it's possible that we'll see dates in Tennessee, but the governor actually articulated, not yet, which is pretty amazing. We don't have any folks on here from Missouri tonight, which is great, but we could be seeing more dates set in Missouri, more dates set in Florida, more dates set in other places, and then also positive things like in Ohio, where there's legislation, sponsored testimony happening this Wednesday in Ohio on the bill to abolish the death penalty there, where the governor in Ohio, there's more than 30 people with execution dates in Ohio, and Governor DeWine is a consistently pro-life Catholic, and he's found a way to not have to allow these executions to go forward. He keeps kicking them down the road. There's some things he could do differently, but we'll be okay with no executions happening. Just like, we have to be okay that President Biden has appointed an attorney general who knows not to send him any execution dates. Would we like to see all the death warrants, all the federal death warrants, or death sentences commuted? Yes, we would. And I think that we will see that if, unless there's a miracle that allows us to pass legislation to abolish the federal death penalty, which we need to work on, and we are working on. But getting anything through this Congress takes a miracle, and certainly something like that. But that's the only way the President Biden can abolish the federal death penalty, is if he has a bill he can sign. But in the meantime, he's made sure that we're not continuing the execution spree. We saw 13 executions in the last 6 months of the Trump administration, and not one since. And we will not see one in the Biden administration, I believe. And I think that once it's sorted out, whether he is 1-term or 2-term president, if he lives that long, God willing, on his way out the door, if they haven't been able to pass a repeal bill for the federal and military death penalty, then I believe that Joe Biden will do what he's promised to do, which is in the way that he can end the federal death penalty. And the way that he can would be to commute all of the federal death sentences. So we'll see where that goes. Obviously, it's back burner for now. We're talking about an execution this Tuesday, another execution a week from Tuesday, another execution in a few weeks. Then we get a little break. Phil Hancock in Oklahoma is scheduled on October 30th. And I think currently that's it for the rest of the year. Let me just share my screen here and we'll take a look together as we head on out. Do want to make sure that we get a chance for other comments, but again, here is deathpenaltyaction.org. This is where you can find the petitions that are of the most upcoming cases, and then just click right here and you get all the ones that are scheduled, as well as some that we're starting, that have been postponed. So we've got these 3 in October. Oh, I've left out Brent Brewer. We'll be talking about him in the next forecast. And of course, that petition is live. And then there's also a bunch of executions that have been postponed. Anibal Canales is a co-defendant to Will Spirit. We'll see what happens there. Ivan Cantu, just got an execution date set. We're going to have to move that back up into the active petitions. His date is in February. And there's others. So we're going to see what happens. So any final thoughts or comments? I want to leave us all with a song a new song that Gabby, who was on with us earlier from Germany, maybe she's still here, but she sent after the execution of Anthony Sanchez 2 weeks ago on Thursday.
Hey,
yes.
Really quick, we skipped over Louisiana, where John Bell Edwards is doing everything he can to commute everyone on death row's sentences before his term expires, I believe, in a few months. But I feel like his efforts are beyond heroic, Herculean, and he is fighting in court. He's fighting in the legislature to get again, everyone on death row in Louisiana's sentences commuted. So many prayers for him. I know recently that the Vatican, Louisiana obviously has a large Roman Catholic presence, and the Vatican has gotten involved, and they are reaching out to Catholic legislators in Louisiana. So again, prayers, and that could be a next big moment for our movement.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. And I should have mentioned that Death Penalty Action's been working behind the scenes with the folks in Louisiana. Our board chair, Reverend Sharon Risher, wrote a letter to the governor as a murder victim family member. So yes, good things happening, and a lot of the good things you don't hear about. So anyway, Gabby, I did get your email. I don't know if I responded to it yet, but I know when I saw you in the audience and we brought you up, I wanted to make sure that this is a good uplift that we could share as we exit the program. But do you want to share anything about your song to introduce it before we share it?
Well, the idea was first this just free at last. and the idea was going into retirement. Actually, it's a sabbatical now. I do not work in school anymore. So this was the idea of Free at Last. But of course, this song is not about my retirement. That was just the first idea. It's about free at last in any kind of situation one could be. It's not only fitting to when someone is passed away, but just to get free of maybe addiction or psychological problems, anything could be in this song.
You said it to me in the context of Anthony Sanchez having been executed and therefore free at last.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everybody watching. And I'll just go ahead and share this, and then we'll be out for the evening. And there's lots and lots and lots to do these next couple of days. Free at last.
But I yearned for freedom to find my best. Free at last, I spread my wings wide, breaking the chains that held me inside. No more boundaries hold me down. Freedom's wings lend me an eternal crown. Free at last, forever in my heart. In the depth of darkness I sought the light, longing for release from the endless fight. The prison of doubts, it held me so tight, but a flicker of hope sparked within my sight. Free at last, I spread my wings wide, breaking the chains. That held me inside. No more boundaries hold. Me down. Freedom's wings lend me an eternal crown. Free at last, forever in my heart. In the depth of my being. I apologize for my streaming here. It seems to be
week. But Gabby, I apologize. We're going to put the link in the chat and let people check it out. And I'm sorry about my bandwidth tonight. I guess who knows what's going on. But anyway, thanks everybody so much for tuning in with us tonight. And sadly, we'll be back together on Tuesday, unless something happens to get in the way of Michael Zach's execution. So watch for I did, if you're on the email list, I did send out the link to register for that. And it's also on all of our social media for the live virtual vigil starting at 5 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. So thank you all very much. Make it a great night.